Dorian now expected to hit Florida as a Category 4 storm. State of emergency, more than 17 million Americans bracing for impact as Dorian moves in. A monster that could pack winds up to 140 miles an hour, taking direct aim at Florida. The new footage of the eye of the massive hurricane, families racing to prepare, supplies flying off shelves, lines growing at gas stations.
President Trump now canceling his trip overseas, monitoring the hurricane as it heads for the southeast. This as a storm erupts in the race for 2020. Frontrunner Joe Biden defiant this morning over questions about an emotional war story he's been telling on the trail.
Breaking overnight, ISIS arrest a 19-year-old taken into custody in New York City. What FBI agents think he was planning.
Terrifying close call. The kindergartner jumping off her school bus to see her mom when she's nearly hit by a speeding car. Her mother's warning this morning.
Alex Trebek's triumphant return. The Jeopardy host now back on the job. His message about his cancer battle and the past champs cheering him on right here on GMA.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. back in the driver's seat just 2 weeks after this fiery plane crash. His wife and baby on board now speaking out as he returns to the racetrack. And cuckoo for Coco Gauff. Fans erupting as the teen sensation storms into the third round of the U.S. Open, now set for an epic showdown.
Live in Times Square, this is Good Morning America.
And good morning, America. It is great to have our friend GMA weekend anchor Eva Pilgrim here with us this morning.
Good to be
so
with
glad
you
you're
guys.
here. And it is a very busy Friday. We want to get right to that news. Hurricane Dorian, now a Category 2 storm, strengthening this morning, threatening to hit Florida as a major Category 4 hurricane.
Yeah, let's take a look at the satellite showing Dorian on the move. You see it right there, making its way through the Atlantic. And here's what the storm looks like from space. You can see this storm is just getting bigger and bigger.
Hurricane hunters flying right into that storm, capturing this video. And here's what we know right now. Dorian could be a Category 4 storm when it hits the east coast of Florida sometime on Tuesday. More than 17 million Americans are on alert. The state of emergency in Florida has been expanded to include every county in that state and a dozen counties in Georgia.
And of course, our team is spread out all across the storm zone. Our Rob Marciano starts us off right there from Melbourne Beach, Florida, where they are now bracing for a possible hit. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, Cecilia. Hurricane Dorian now about 800 miles that way in the open ocean. We have hurricane watches that are posted for the Bahamas, and advisories and watches may very well be posted here along the Florida Peninsula later on today or certainly tomorrow. It's getting more organized in those warm waters. Here's a satellite picture. It's a Category 2 storm now and on the verge of becoming a Category 3 storm. Just north of the Turks and Caicos Islands. 85, 86 degree water temperatures there, so it's got plenty of fuel to fire this thing. Probably becoming a Cat 3 later today, maybe a Cat 4 late tomorrow night into Sunday. Now, the timing of this has slowed down a little bit, so it's Monday night into Tuesday morning, potentially a Cat 4 somewhere between Fort Lauderdale, maybe Cape Canaveral, but this is going to be a powerful storm, and there's still a fair amount of uncertainty in this forecast. The setup's the same. High pressure will nudge it towards the west, and our computer models, though, last night we launched more balloons, we had more recon aircraft, so they're in a little bit better agreement, a little bit more confidence this morning that Central or South Florida is going to get hit hard, but it'll probably go north towards the coastline. So high impacts with this, big wind, big rain, and of course storm surge. And to highlight that, we want to show you our drone shot here. In this part of Florida, we've got these big dunes that protect the Atlantic side, but we are not too far from the intercoastal waterway, and many parts of Florida are surrounded by water on both sides, and you can get surge on the other side of this in the intercoastal. So that's an issue, as you know, Tom, being from this area as we go through time over the weekend. A lot of water, a lot of problems.
Yeah, and a very wet summer as well. All right, Rob, we'll be checking in with you throughout the show. Florida is bracing for the worst. People are scrambling to stock up on supplies or get out of town before the hurricane hits. Take a look at these long lines forming at a gas station in Miami-Dade. And get this, this was 2 o'clock this morning. Dorian could be the strongest hurricane there since Andrew made landfall in 1992. Let's go right to Gio Benitez, who's in Miami, with more on the preps underway. Gio, good morning.
Hey, Tom, good morning. We are surrounded by 3 gas stations right now. Take a look at this one right here because the lines are long. This one is just wrapped around this station. Take a look at that one across the street. The line goes all the way down the road. And over there on the other end, that gas station doesn't have any gas at all. And it's only going to get worse from here. All across the state of Florida, it's a race against time for more than 17 million people in the path of Hurricane Dorian. Residents rushing to stores and gas stations overnight, loading up on food, bottled water, and gas.
It's hard to get gas right now, water, just everywhere is packed. There's cars everywhere.
I already went to like 5 different stores. Nobody have water nowhere.
I was here like 3 hours ago, and there was no way to come in.
Residents in Davie waiting in a line that wraps around the store, hoping to scoop up the last of those precious goods. Outside this supply store in South Florida, long lines forming for propane. Inside this Home Depot, materials dwindling, many met with empty shelves. This is what we're seeing all across South Florida, people preparing for this storm, loading up that plywood to board up their homes. We met Jose Noriega buying 26 sandbags.
Obviously planning for the worst possible, but hoping for the best.
This traffic jam in Orlando caused by residents hoping to purchase the few remaining sandbags. This morning, families hunkering down. And businesses, too, who are hiring contractors to protect their stores. Florida's governor issuing a state of emergency for all 67 counties.
All Floridians really need to monitor Hurricane Dorian and make the necessary preparations.
People already packing up to get up and get out. Watch this mega yacht migration in Fort Lauderdale. The monster storm intensifying, now expected to approach land as a Category 4. With NOAA pilots flying missions to survey its strength, NASA even capturing this view from space. Residents in the Caribbean watched as Dorian barreled through, flooding streets and bringing winds up to 110 miles per hour. Now the storm has its sights set on Florida. Officials aren't taking any chances because so many are in the cone of uncertainty.
We are preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
And if prepping for a hurricane wasn't hard enough, now you've got a very rainy day here in South Florida. That's going to make boarding up homes a lot tougher. It's going to make going out there, getting your supplies a lot tougher. That's why Florida officials are saying that everyone in this state needs to prepare today. It's just so important, Eva.
All right, good advice there, Gio. And this morning, we're getting a new look at the storm from the sky. The hurricane hunters flying through the clouds near Dorian's eye. And check this out. NOAA sending its first all-female 3-pilot flight crew on a reconnaissance mission, taking off from Lakeland, Florida, flying around Hurricane Dorian to collect data, returning about 7 hours later. The crew covering more than 3,600 miles. Cecilia?
Okay, Eva, thank you. And joining us now from Washington is the acting administrator of FEMA, Peter Gaynor. Mr. Gaynor, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us. I know that you are familiar with the predictions that we are talking about right now. If these models stick, Florida won't have seen a storm like this hit since Hurricane Andrew. What are your biggest concerns right now?
Well, we are planning for a Category 4 here in Washington, D.C. That's our planning assumption. And our biggest concerns now is that the clock is ticking. And now is the time for residents of Florida, South Georgia to make preparations. If you've seen some of those tracks, it could make landfall anywhere between Key West and Jacksonville, and again, even into South Georgia. Don't waste time today. Make preparations. Make sure you and your family are safe.
Given the scope of this storm and the potential impact, I imagine it is hard to prepare for it because it is potentially so large. So your specific message to the residents of Florida right now who may not have been out to the stores to buy boards or things like that, what is your message for them this morning?
Well, I think there's growing concern that no matter where the hurricane makes landfall, it could impact the majority of Florida. So if you've seen some of the tracks this morning, central Florida, and then can make a turn up the 95 corridor into Georgia, that impacts everyone. So just because you're not in that impact zone, it could affect you. It's going to be a big storm, wind, rain, surge. Don't take this storm lightly.
What preparations has FEMA made on the ground in anticipation of Dorian hitting?
Well, we've been moving our supply, staff, and equipment into Florida. A lot of our planning teams are already embedded with Florida Emergency Management in Tallahassee. We'll continue to move our commodities like generators in and around the state to make sure that the state has no unmet needs. So we'll continue to do that over the weekend. And so like the federal family is preparing, we encourage families, individuals to take preparation seriously. The clock is ticking.
So FEMA has come under fire for its handling of those back-to-back storms back in 2017. Can you promise this morning that FEMA is ready there in Florida for what's to come?
For us as a nation to have a successful response to disaster, All those things have to be working. Florida has seen its share of hurricanes. They're well familiar with how to prepare, as is counties and the federal government. And again, don't let time slip by. Preparedness is the key to make sure that we're ready for what Dorian brings.
Okay, FEMA's Peter Gaynor this morning. Thank you so much. Tom?
All right, Cecilia, thank you. And we're already seeing the effects of Hurricane Dorian on holiday travel. More airline waivers are being issued as the storm closes in. Steve Osunsami is at the world's busiest airport, Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta, with the latest this morning. Steve, good morning.
Good morning to you, Tom. It is a busy morning of travel behind me here at the airport. We are not seeing any flight cancellations due to the storm at this moment, but I can guarantee you that is going to change. 6 airlines are now offering travel waivers: Southwest, Delta, American, Spirit, JetBlue, and United. And for flights in and out of the Caribbean and now Florida, the Florida list is getting especially long. Nearly every major airport on the east coast of Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Melbourne, West Palm Beach, Jacksonville, just to name a few. And most of these are for flights starting tomorrow. 17 cruise ships have now rerouted their schedules to avoid this storm, impacting tens of thousands of travelers. Florida's 3 largest airports are now preparing for high winds. In Miami, they're asking the airlines to tie down large pieces of equipment or remove them from the airfield. Eva?
All right, a massive headache on a holiday travel weekend. Steve Osunsami for us. One of the most serious concerns from this hurricane, life-threatening storm surge. The hurricane force wind pushing ocean water onshore, washing away everything in its path. Kaylee Hartung is in Jacksonville, where they faced this just 2 years ago with Hurricane Irma. Good morning to you, Kaylee.
Yeah, good morning, Eva. Jacksonville is a city built on wetlands. It doesn't take a hurricane and powerful storm surge to flood this area. Residents here know all too well a bad rainstorm can lead to the St. Johns River here raising several feet. Hurricane Irma, it made landfall 70 miles from here, and yet the damage the storm surge did here, that led Jacksonville's mayor to call it the storm of the century. I want you to compare the view we have here this morning with what the storm surge did here 2 years ago as the water toppled the embankment. We've got I-95 running above our heads. Water flowed through the streets here downtown. As the hurricane storm surge, it forced water up the ocean's mouth, the ocean water up the river's mouth rather, and that water, well, it had nowhere to go. Hurricane Michael, just a year ago, that was another storm you'll remember with very powerful storm surge. Ginger Z watching a house get carried away right before her. Jacksonville's mayor now saying this is not a time to panic, rather it's a time to prepare. Cecilia?
We all remember those images. Okay, Kaylee, thank you. And in Washington, President Trump closely monitoring Dorian this morning. On Twitter, he made some dire predictions of his own about that storm's path. Take a listen.
It really began to form and form big. And now it's looking like it could be an absolute monster. Somebody said bigger or at least as big as Andrew.
Okay, so let's bring in our senior national correspondent, Terry Moran, there at the White House. And Terry, the president was supposed to be in Poland this weekend. He ended up canceling that trip to stay and keep a close eye on the storm.
That's it exactly, Cecilia. He was supposed to go to Poland for a solemn commemoration of the beginning of World War II 80 years ago next week, but he decided to stay here and track developments. First, from the White House, he had an Oval Office briefing on Hurricane Dora yesterday, and he's heading to Camp David this afternoon in order to take the Labor Day weekend there, but he'll be tracking developments. The president sees these things as an opportunity really for presidential leadership. As you say, he's on Twitter quite a bit. I'm sure we'll see him again. And he has a personal stake in this one. He's got 4 properties along the eastern coast of Florida, including Mar-a-Lago, which has become basically the southern White House, and that Trump Doral Golf Club, where he proposed to have the G7 next year. And so he is looking not just as president, but as property owner at this hurricane as it comes barreling in, and he will be tracking developments first from here and then from Camp David.
This holiday weekend, as Hurricane Dorian continues to gain strength, already a major Category 3. Rob Marciano standing by with the brand new track just in. As residents rush to stock up on supplies, police escorting fuel trucks, concerns about a gas shortage, NASA even pulling its launcher from the pad. The travel impacts already being felt.
where evacuations have just been ordered and hurricane warnings just went up. New tonight from the White House, President Trump's personal secretary, one of his closest aides, forced to resign after revealing personal details about the first family to reporters. The autopsy is in, authorities revealing a deadly drug cocktail killed a major league pitcher found unresponsive in his hotel room. The 911 drowning outrage, a dispatcher on her final day, what she said to a woman stranded in her car as floodwaters rise.
This will teach you next time, don't drive in the water.
That woman would not survive. Tonight, the investigation. The mystery deaths at a VA hospital. At least one homicide confirmed. Several other suspicious deaths. What's going on and who's to blame? And never give up. The lucky lottery player who is now a multi-millionaire, and the simple strategy that finally paid off 3 decades later.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
And good evening. It's great to have you with us on a busy Friday night. I'm Tom Yamas, in for David. And we begin with Hurricane Dorian growing to an extremely dangerous Category 3 storm and now taking a menacing turn towards Florida. Take a look at the track. Dorian is expected to grow even stronger before striking the east coast of the Sunshine State. A weather satellite capturing flashes of lightning inside the churning storm. And in Florida right now, there's a frantic rush to get people ready, collecting sandbags and boarding up windows. Parts of Cocoa Beach already looking like a ghost town. Gas stations are running dry. Fuel trucks are replenishing supplies under police escort in West Palm Beach. And with the threat of storm surge, boats headed out of Fort Lauderdale to safer harbors. ABC senior meteorologist Rob Marciano starts us off, tracking it all on the beach in Melbourne, Florida tonight. Rob, good evening.
Good evening, Tom. As you mentioned, Dorian now a Category 3 storm, a dangerous and potentially damaging hurricane, now less than 600 miles from this Florida coastline. Here you see it on the satellite imagery. It has made that westerly turn. The eye very distinct, 30 miles across, is a distinct signature of a hurricane. And now hurricane warnings have been posted for the northwestern Caribbean. That's where some of the warmest water is, 85 to 90 degrees. That's why we anticipate further strengthening into a Category 4 status. The official track for the National Hurricane Center and timing does slow it down once again. We're looking at late Monday into Tuesday morning for a potential landfall with this as a damaging hurricane and then making that right turn toward the north. But a lot of uncertainty once again. These computer models that we continue to watch have not come into agreement. The two most important ones, the American GFS and that European model, are not agreeing. The GFS takes it well inland with a complete landfall. That Euro keeps it offshore. Both of them slow it down. So a long duration event. The question is landfall or offshore. We are hoping for offshore. And I've talked to emergency managers today, Tom, and they tell me they're not taking any major action because of this until at least tomorrow. Tom?
And that's why we're going to be tracking it all weekend. All right, Rob, thank you. More than 17 million people in Florida are bracing for Dorian to arrive. And it's not just homes and businesses that are being battened down. Airports, construction sites, even the Kennedy Space Center is high on alert. ABC's Gio Benitez is in Miami again for us tonight.
Tonight, residents along Florida's East Coast boarding up. The clock ticking on final preparations as more than 17 million residents wait for word on evacuations.
If you're in an evacuation zone and you're ordered to evacuate, please do so.
Many cities, including Miami, handing out free sandbags. Hurricane Irma is fresh on Gabriel Velasquez's mind.
When Irma came, the whole apartment or the whole complex, the first floor was flooded. Yeah. So to prevent that, this year I'm getting sand.
The hunt for fuel is on. In Southwest Miami-Dade, long lines at 2 a.m., and they're not letting up. By midday, pumps running dry at more than half of the gas stations in the Miami-Fort Lauderdale area. I'm looking for gas myself, but at the stations with no lines, well, that's because the pumps are covered up. They've run out of gas. The Florida Highway Patrol now escorting tankers bringing in more fuel. In Fort Lauderdale, a parade of boats heading to safer water. At the Kennedy Space Center, NASA moving that 400-foot mobile launcher from the launch pad to inside the vehicle assembly building. The Florida Air National Guard flying F-15 Eagles from Jacksonville to safety in Ohio. This is the view from inside the eye of Dorian, now a Category 3 storm. Our station, WFTV, with the hurricane hunters as they gathered data 45,000 feet up Thursday.
That is the central dense overcast of Hurricane Dorian. Right now, our drop sonde is falling through the atmosphere, taking measurements.
Back on land, crews securing the construction cranes that dot the South Florida skyline, making sure they can stay balanced and rotate in the wind. Hurricane Irma sent cranes spinning and several snapped, including this one in Miami.
And Gio Benitez joins us now. Gio, a very busy scene there behind you. That gas station just got a fuel delivery?
That's right, Tom, and that's why this one here is just so popular. In fact, you can see that line forming right there on the road there. You know, we just checked Gas Buddy, and it says that here in the Miami area, more than 60% of gas stations have no gas. Tom.
Gio Benitez live in Miami for us. Gio, thank you. And before Dorian reaches the U.S. mainland, it will barrel through the Bahamas, where hurricane warnings are now in place. Flights are expected to be canceled there. The leading edge of transportation disruptions on the way here as well. As of now, the Orlando airport will be closed on Monday morning. Amtrak trains suspended already in Florida, and cruise ships are being rerouted. ABC's Marcus Moore is in the Bahamas tonight. Marcus, good evening.
Tom, good evening. They are preparing for a direct hit here in this part of the Bahamas. You can see they've cleared out the marina just behind me. No boats here. And hurricane warnings have just been posted. Evacuation orders are also in effect at this popular U.S. vacation spot. We're told most tourists have already left, and we should start to feel the effects of Dorian late tomorrow. And some cruise liners are trying to figure out where to send their ships on the way to the Bahamas or back to Florida. And we have seen people frantically boarding up homes and businesses here. And you can see the line at the supermarket where people were stocking up on food and supplies. The storm surge is expected to be as high as 15 feet on this island. They are preparing for the worst. Tom?
Marcus Moore in Abaco, Bahamas for us tonight. Marcus, thank you.
Breaking news tonight, Dorian now a major Category 3 hurricane. The extremely dangerous monster storm gaining strength. The new track as we come on the air. Florida bracing for a potential direct hit. Dorian threatening to become an even more powerful Cat 4. Millions under states of emergency. Officials warning residents to get ready. Tourists scrambling to get out. Big havoc for holiday travel. When and where will it hit? Al Roker standing by. Breaking right now, the cause of death for a star pitcher revealed. The tragedy stunning Major League Baseball. Tonight, the link to a growing nationwide crisis. Also tonight, the ISIS terror arrest. What authorities just revealed about the 19-year-old suspect, the popular tourist attraction he allegedly plotted to target in a violent attack. NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt Jr. speaking out for the first time since he and his family survived that fiery plane crash, breaking his silence about the extremely close call on the runway and how he feels about getting back in the NASCAR driver's seat.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. I'm Peter Alexander in for Lester. Tonight, Hurricane Dorian is gathering strength as it barrels toward Florida. Now a major storm, a Category 3 that could begin battering the coast as early as Monday. Forecasters warned it could make landfall as a Cat 4 with winds reaching 140 miles an hour. Tonight, a state of emergency has been declared for the entire state of Florida. Heading into this busy Labor Day weekend, authorities there are already urging residents to stockpile a week's worth of food and supplies. Our team is on the ground in Florida tonight, but we begin with Al Roker, who is tracking this monster storm. Al?
Peter, a dangerous Category 3 storm, currently 595 miles east of West Palm Beach, Florida. 115-mile-per-hour winds, slowing down a bit west-northwest at 9 miles per hour. Track of the storm, it becomes a Category 4 storm on Sunday, and then by Tuesday afternoon, it's onshore as a Category 4. Now, as we look at the comparison between the American and European models, the European model keeps it off the coast, while the American model mimics the National Hurricane Center model. As far as the effects are concerned, catastrophic winds for the Bahamas. We're looking for tropical storm gust late Monday for eastern Florida. Rainfall amounts 20 inches in parts of the Bahamas, and we're talking about the southeast looking at upwards of a foot of rain with isolated areas of 18 inches, Peter, and that's not even considering the storm surge.
All right, Al Roker, thank you very much for that. And the rush, of course, is on tonight in Florida, where millions of residents are bracing for Dorian's punch. The storm already wreaking havoc on holiday travel heading into this Labor Day weekend. NBC's Kathy Park is in Indian Harbor Beach, Florida. Kathy, what are you seeing there?
Peter, well, the water is still relatively calm, but preparations are intensifying here along the coast. Storm shutters are starting to go up as residents remain on high alert.
Hurricane Dorian nearly as wide as Ohio.
Water on the right. The threat has customers in South Florida jamming stores.
Let's keep the line moving, please.
Buying supplies to keep them safe and sound.
A fan to help cool in case we lose power. We can run it off the generator.
The uncertainty has people on edge.
It's all just not knowing where it's going to come, how bad it's going to hit.
The entire state in the danger zone as a Category 3 storm spins closer.
This is a major event. It's much better to be prepared and then not have to face it than to go into one of these things unprepared.
The Bahamas bracing too. Back in South Florida, at the docks, boats secured as business owners board up.
It's better just to be prepared and get it done.
Preparing for flooding, a priority too. Here in Melbourne, people waited at least 4 hours for 10 sandbags, and more than 20,000 were distributed over 2 days.
I'd rather wait for the 4.5 hours. You know, my life is more important.
At the hurricane headquarters of Florida Power and Light, teams are planning for post-storm outages.
We're also reaching out to neighboring utilities to try and identify more resources for what we expect could be a very dangerous storm.
Also dangerous for the state's most vulnerable. Near Cocoa Beach, Rockledge Regional Medical Center is putting its emergency plan into action.
It involves making sure we've got staffing in place, making sure we've got physicians ready to go, making sure that we've got plenty of food and supplies to really last at least 96 hours.
And as the storm closes in, Florida's National Guard has 2,000 troops on alert, activated for any emergencies ahead. Kathy Park, NBC News, Brevard County, Florida.
I'm Morgan Chesky in Miami, where Dorian's already wreaking havoc by land, sea, and air on a busy holiday weekend.
We're leaving today, so we're going to be gone before it even thinks about hitting.
Flights filling up statewide as many cut their trips here short or cancel them altogether.
How excited are you to get back home to Tennessee?
Man, words can't explain.
On the roads, no mandatory evacuations yet, but drivers getting ready, though finding fuel in short supply. Florida's governor saying half of Miami stations have already run empty.
We're constantly having trucks being refueled at the ports and then going to fill up these tanks at the gas stations.
For popular resorts, the plan is to watch and wait. Universal Orlando is open for now. The same goes for Disney World, as crowds today swarm the new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge attraction. On the water, cruise lines aren't taking any chances. Carnival canceling and rerouting trips to the Bahamas, along with Royal Caribbean. And back at Miami International, the countdown is on, nerves on edge for anyone getting out of town before Dorian blows in.
What are you thinking? What are you doing?
Prepared and just have to be safe, pray, and hope that when it passes by, it don't harm many houses, many people, and we can get through it.
And tonight, that travel ripple effect from Dorian already being felt. Orlando Airport announcing they'll be ceasing operations on Monday. Meanwhile, a lot of the major carriers are offering ticket waivers for flights in Florida to make sure passengers have an option to change penalty-free.
Sad news just coming in tonight. The passing of a TV legend. Actress Valerie Harper has died. The Emmy winner was 80. NBC's Ann Thompson has a look back at her life and her legacy.
Tonight, Dorian's now a major hurricane. Florida could be hit by catastrophic winds and storm surges. Gas stations are running out of fuel. The National Guard's been activated. We've got the latest on when and where Dorian will hit. Also tonight, 2 daughters called for justice after their father's suspicious death at a VA hospital as the Justice Department joins the investigation. Breaking news, we now know the cause of death for Los Angeles pitcher Tyler Skaggs. New investigations are launched into whether the e-cigarette maker Juul is targeting minors. The minor league pitching prospect shares for the first time his heartbreak after his wife and 1-year-old son were murdered this week. Late today, the founder of Twitter had his own Twitter account hacked. Racist tweets were sent to 4 million followers. And Steve Hartman on how one letter from a little girl made a big difference.
This is the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell.
Good evening. Nora is off tonight. I'm John Dickerson. This is our Western edition. Hurricane Dorian reached Category 3 intensity today. Forecasters consider that a major hurricane, and it will only get worse before it strikes early next week, likely as a Category 4. More than 20 million Americans could feel the storm's impact. Views from space show the hurricane clenching like a fist as it stalks the Bahamas. It now appears the storm could stall there for a few days. Florida's East Coast is bracing for what could be its most powerful storm in 27 years. Georgia and the Carolinas are also on high alert. Lonnie Quinn from WCBS in New York is tracking Dorian. Lonnie, what's the latest?
Well, the latest is we just got an update from the National Hurricane Center about an hour ago or so. And take a look at this. The storm, it's getting stronger, okay? A perfectly formed eye right in the middle of that storm. You want to look for that perfectly round donut. Well, that's what we have as of right now. Take a look at the numbers as the National Hurricane Center is reporting. And, John, this is just in. It's no longer a Cat 3, now a Cat 4. 130-mile-per-hour winds, up 15 miles per hour in just 3 hours. It's moving to the northwest at 10 miles per hour. Lots of time to gather more strength over that warm water. 575 miles east of West Palm Beach. But take a look at the statement that came out with all of the numbers. This is from the National Hurricane Center. Given the collapse of steering currents, the track forecast by the end of the forecast period is highly uncertain. Uncertain. What does that mean? Take a look at this. When you look at the forecast cone, okay, up until about Monday, which is depicted right here as a Category 4 somewhere around the Bahamas, confidence is very high. The uncertainty comes in after this, and watch what happens. It is just going to balloon. What I'm showing you here, this area right there, that's about 100 miles wide, and that is where the confidence ends. After that, that cone becomes about 750 miles wide. It could go anywhere. It could, like these numbers are showing you, come on shore somewhere around West Palm or Melbourne and then travel right up the coastline, still a Category 2 by Wednesday, all right? That would be a problem. Or, like you were saying, it could go offshore. As a matter of fact, look at this. The European model never puts it onshore, although if it stays offshore, it's going to continue to push that water onshore. But it's still a better scenario, never getting a landfall. John, let's go over to you.
All right, Lonnie, we're going to be back to you. Thank you. At Cape Canaveral today, NASA rolled its $650 million rocket launcher into safe storage, while the Air Force evacuated aircraft from bases in Florida and Georgia. Military search and rescue units are standing by. Maria Villarreal shows us how civilians are getting ready for the storm.
Which generator did you want?
There's plenty of time to prepare for Hurricane Dorian.
There's only 3 today.
Just not enough supplies.
So you're not leaving?
No, absolutely not.
James Shudard got in line at 5 in the morning to buy a generator and gas tanks.
I've been here for almost 30 years, and it gets worse every year.
The uncertainty of where Hurricane Dorian will land has people all along Florida's East Coast hunkering down.
The time to act is now. You do have some time, but that time is running out.
Across the state, residents are facing long lines at gas stations and fuel shortages. In Miami, nearly half of its stations ran out of gas today.
This is Seaport Canaveral. The fuel that supplies most of Central Florida has to come through here, and there is a huge supply, 38 million gallons ready to go. But when Hurricane Dorian hits Florida, there is no doubt this place will have to shut down, and that supply will be cut off.
Up to 400 trucks come through this tank farm, transporting fuel to nearby airports and gas stations. Families are waiting hours for sandbags, and food and water are flying off the shelves. State officials are also checking on nursing homes to make sure they have generators after 12 people died in 2017 when Hurricane Irma knocked out power at nursing homes. At the world's second largest cruise port, ships are now charting a new course to keep everyone safe.
Right now, pilot boats are busy, like the one that we are on right now, escorting ships out of Port Canaveral. Up to 6 of them will be moving through here today and tomorrow before the port actually closes on Saturday night. So, John, it is truly a race against time.
Maria Villarreal on the east coast of Florida. We received word tonight that actress Valerie Harper has died after a long battle with cancer. Harper was best known for her role as Rhoda Morgenstern in the Mary Tyler Moore Show on CBS. She turned 80 last week. Jim Axelrod looks back.